DeMarcus Law Offices. With me is Trish Berry, who's the new GM at the Battery Wharf Hotel, and also John Collins, who's the Food and Beverage Director. He's been there since 2011. He's also the current manager of record on the liquor license, and he's the proposed manager of record. As Mr. Brogna said, we're here to replace or swap out the special legislation license that's there now with one of the licenses that the hotel is purchasing on the open market. The reason is, as again Victor said, it's a non-transferable license, and it doesn't work for a multi-million-dollar business that does get sold, that does get, I don't want to go too deep into the hotel world, but typically there's a property owner, there's an operations company, and a lot of times there's the name brand company as well, like in this case Fairmont. They happen to be the operations company and the name brand, but you know, there's many moving pieces, and this license doesn't allow them to do the things that most hotels do to stay vibrant and healthy. Here also is Ralph Burney. He's the president of the Residents Association at the Battery Wharf, and also Matt Gallant. He's the director of residency at the Battery Wharf, so they can speak to what the residents of the Battery Wharf condominium think about this. Beyond what I just said, nothing is changing at the hotel. Obviously, we have the same manager. It's the same operation. It's one restaurant. It's food service. It's room service. It's functions. It's the same space. There's a number of buildings that are licensed. The same hours. The same seating. Victor, I actually had another thought after the ZLC meeting. One of the things that we do for a hotel at any license is at renewal time in November, you have to submit to the Boston Licensing Commission all of your certificates of inspection and fire assembly permits, and those have your seating on it and your occupancy. So it really, it's one of the ways of, that's where I got that, that's why I had that in my file for you. It's one of the ways of locking it in. The new applications in use for like the last 2 or 3 years ask for seating and ask for total occupancy. So that's in the retail application now. So you are locked into that. You're also locked in to your setup. I've been to over 150 communities in Massachusetts. I had done, it's called alteration of licensed premises. It's the box on the application. You change that premises, you've got to go through the full process, the local licensing authority in the state, and as we all know, the Boston Licensing Board makes us come here. We've had an abutters meeting to go to the ZLC. We're going to go to the neighborhood council. They had to continue it to the 23rd from last week. And we're going to come here, and we'd have to come here again to get to consult with the community if anything changes there. This is again, the special legislation license was not written by someone who knew the restaurant, the hotel industry. There's a one in Peavey right now where the state legislator who passed it is trying to say, oh, it's transferable, but it's very similar language to this one. And I asked a former legislator, I was like, how does that happen? And they said, they just copy what worked and what got passed the last time, and nobody really reads it. So, I did not indict anybody that way. The former legislator did, but that's how this occurred. They're trying to solve it. It just doesn't work. It's a $48 million piece of property. It just doesn't work for what they're trying to do. John and Trish have, at the abutters meeting at the ZLC, they've handed out their cards. They want to make it known that you can come, you can comment to them, you can call them. They're in the hospitality industry. They're used to dealing with complaints. So if there's any issues, they want to get calls. They want to address it. They want to be a good business citizen. You do a little bit of John Collins because he's the manager of record. This will be asked at the licensing board hearing. He's been a food and beverage director here since 2011. He's got 12 years in the hotel management and restaurant business. He's directly supervising the alcohol sales at the hotel. He's also the person who developed the Aragosta concept, which has been well received and well regarded hopefully it's a good compliment to the community, and you know, so he's continuing on, and you know, we hope we can get your support, and we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Great. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask abutters to make their questions only. Any abutters here? All right. Okay, but no questions.
I think it's outrageous. My bedroom is right above your hotel. I live at 50 Battery Road. I think you should shut down before 2 a.m. It's loud.
Okay. In the form of a question. No, never mind.
Stop.
So are there any other questions from anyone in the audience? Questions only for now? I'll ask a question. Your discussion about the non-transferable, the hotel licenses, can I infer from that in the new legislation that expanded the number of liquor licenses in the city of Boston, the Anna Presley legislation, there were 15 new hotel-specific licenses created. A lot of us were curious why you guys didn't go after one of those. Did you just explain?
Identical language. And I've had 2 hotel developers who have approached me in the last month about the new ones. And I looked at it and I said, wow, it's the same language. Now, somebody from RBW did go and speak to the mayor's office and spoke to one of the drafters, initial drafters of the legislation, and they just said they didn't mean it to be non-transferable in place, because that still keeps the value, so you can pass it on with the business, and that works for a hotel. But yeah, those new ones are the same.
Because those new ones are free, and instead you're going out and buying a pretty expensive license.
Same language, non-transferable.
Okay.
Just one more question. Will you have music?
It's the same entertainment that they're having now.
Very loud.
Who is buying it? Who? It's not the Fairmont anymore. Who is it now? Is
There's
it
a company called Westmont Hospitality Group. They are an owner-operator, been around since 1975. They've owned and operated about 1,100 hotels during that time. They currently own and operate about a little over 500. They're a unique company that even if they're just the managing operations side of things, they have an ownership stake in the property because they want to have skin in the game. It works for both the majority owner. In this case, they own the whole thing, but it works for both the majority owner feels comfortable. If they do badly, the value of their ownership does badly. But it also works for the community. If the building's not well kept, if the community's not happy with it, that reflects badly on the hotel and it devalues their ownership interest. Early on this, somebody from Westmont was telling me that they love the uniqueness of the property, that the community, you know, is part of this, can be part of this property. That's one of the things that drew them to this property. So, Westmont Hospitality, the difference between a Fairmont and Westmont belongs to a group called Leading Hotels of the World. One of those hotels is, one of the affiliates in that is the Taj, Boston, and Arlington, and Newbury. So Fairmont has about 89 hotels, affiliated hotels. Leading Hotels of the World has hundreds, and they're like the Taj. So it gives you an opportunity to share service, get good services, get good suppliers, but also cross-market to that type of customer, and that's who they want here. So
Is the Battery Wharf Inn the Leading Hotels of the World?
yeah, they belong to
And
there.
which other Westmont hotels, in other areas would be in that we could?
They're in Europe, and I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, Westmont does it. They cross. They have luxury hotels, but they have mid-level hotels. They have some like suite type hotels. They actually, they are partners with Fairmont. It's just not, it didn't work for this one.
I understand. Because in the application documents, there were a bunch of reference hotels provided for Westmont, and there were a lot of DoubleTrees, so, which is a fine brand, but it's not necessarily a Fairmont.
Yeah.
So, but what you're saying is we should think more of the high end than the DoubleTree.
Right. Absolutely.
All right.
That's the
I'll ask another question if there are none from the audience, because I'm really full of questions out of you guys. Victor mentioned something about seat restrictions. If we were in a typical restaurant, the number of seats would be germane and would become a matter of record. The language on the application says that it can be, the license can be used to serve liquor in buildings, and then it goes on to list all of your buildings. Oddly, it does not list the subterranean area between two of your buildings where your main ballroom is, but probably that's split between two buildings. But anyhow, it suggests that this single license could be used to have pourings at every one of those buildings in a bar per building or several bars per building. Is that possible?
How do I put this? It's possible, but we'd have to come back here before you, and I'm skeptical about what that vote would be here. You know, you can't. There's an empty space. You can't put a bar in there. The Boston Police would be in there in a heartbeat. They violate you, or the ABCC would come in and shut you down, because that's. We're also submitting a plan with this, and it's sort of, look, the application's gotten a lot better, right? But it's not perfect.
So let's say that you apply for, you purchase this license, you get all the approvals, you clone exactly what was there before. Aragosto keeps going, the room service and the function area keeps going, the outdoor area keeps going exactly as it is with those nice s'mores and fires and stuff like that. But then someone decides, well, wouldn't it be great in that little triangular building, put a bar in there, like a sports bar, or like a fancy, cocktail bar or something. And what steps would you need to do in order to get that second bar approved? Would you need another license, or would you just need a modification to this license?
I think you need an alteration, at the very least, an alteration of licensed premises, which requires notice to abutters. I'm talking beyond, what the city of Boston, just on a state level, requires notice to abutters, local licensing authority hearing, ABCC investigation and approval. In Boston, it would require us to, come here, do an abutters meeting, mayor's no abutters meeting, go to the ZLC, come here, go to the neighborhood council, then go to Boston licensing.
And what you would be seeking from licensing would be an amendment to the current license?
It's called an alteration.
Okay. All right. And you wouldn't be able to do this extra bar without such a...
Absolutely.
And you'd have to do it each time. Okay, great.
But this wouldn't preclude you from having an event in the ballroom. You could set up a bar in the ballroom or in the time that.
Yeah, and
Under that license.
that's why the innkeeper's license, that's why it's written the way it is. It's an innkeeper's license allows you to do that. They say in the whole of said, Boston says in the whole of said building.
Right, and you also have, the Fairmont had, and maybe Battery, I don't know if you do or not, I assume you still do, you had a sort of one of the buildings had a President's Club lounge where, they also serve liquor. Is the President's Club?
It's still in existence.
Okay. All right, okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Please.
How late was the previous license that was closing out the previous license?
I can answer that. They're both 2 a.m.
Well, except outside.
Outside we stop at 11. 10:30 is 10:30 we close.
And it will remain that way?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, there's a and Victor has a copy of it, a letter from you all for the patio, and the those conditions will still stay in effect. You usually have a half hour after closing time to clear the tables. This one was stop serving at 11 and the table, everybody else table cleared at 11.
Okay, right. We shut down at 11.
Right.
Stop serving.
In other words, no half hour rotation.
And there was, in that particular thing, there were specific seats associated with that.
There's 86 seats on the patio, and that's what was approved in the letter. It's 127 inside. That can be approved in a letter. I mean, that can be those are also in the fire assembly permits and certificate of inspections. That's it. And the Boston police, a lot of clients get written up for violations, and Boston police are looking for things like that.
Are your residents in the facility in support of this? Yes.
Ready to go to comments?
I think so, yes.
Trying to stick to the format.
The chair appreciates that, thank you
I
so
don't want
much.
to make you mad, so that's
Yeah, let's go to comments from the abutter of.
My name is Ralph Burney. I've been residence there since 2008. Been NEWRA members since 2009, and we were very much involved in the Aristotle patio situation, which had two waves to it: the initial and the extension from 10 o'clock closed to 11. And even more significantly, in addition to being president of the Residential Association, more significantly is the fact that our unit is right above the outdoor, and so we have a pretty good view and hearing of noise issues and so on. And John knows me well because we see each other a lot, but also, he knows occasional things sometimes, they'll hear about it from me and others and so on, and then I take care of it. But this was something when we first heard of it, we were very sensitive to residents and the board, particularly with residents generally, and asking questions, and, spend time with Trish and John and council and others to make sure that it was just as said, it was just exact same, no change in the condition of, the outdoor, having to be served with food. It's not a bar outside, it's a restaurant that, has alcohol as an option, and so on and so on. And we came away completely satisfied that nothing was changing in any way to what's there now. And we're obviously happy residents there now, and so we support it fully.
Are there any other comments from abutters? Let's open it up to everyone for comments. I would have been disappointed, David.
Dave Kuby, I believe in place. Two key issues were brought up at the CLC meeting. One is you have already addressed that if there are any changes on the site with respect to the service of alcohol, that those changes go through the formal application process for amendment of the license, which would then force you back to the community for a review of those changes. And those changes should include such things as additional venues, a change in venue, if Aragosta becomes TGIF, for instance, number of seats, number of bars, and hours. If any of those things change, you've responded very well, you've listened very well and responded very well to our concerns, that you will make sure that that comes to the community. I would like Victor to include that in our letter to the licensing board, to the extent that the licensing board can also enforce this.
Yes, except for change of name, as long as the name isn't a foreign language equivalent of a four-letter word. I don't think that you would have to come before the community to change the name.
Okay, moving on.
Aragosta would be the equivalent of 7.
The other concern we raised really doesn't have to do with the license, but it has to do with the operation of the whole development complex, and that's public access. And the previous manager of that property, I think, gets poor marks for promoting, protecting, and certainly didn't do any enhancing of public access on that site. every square inch of the outdoor area is supposed to be publicly accessible. Certainly, that's true for the Harbor Walk especially. And there's a second floor public galley, is that the right phrase?
Gallery?
Or a gallery. It's a viewing place on the second floor above the museum. Now, many in this room probably don't even know there's a public museum there. And how would they, since you've got to walk at least 150 feet into the site before you can read a kiosk that tells you the public amenities on the site. So there's a terrific little museum there about the history of the harbor. There's an elevator that is supposed to take you up to an outdoor level, viewing level. And if you get up there, it's actually a pretty amazing view of the harbor, of the Coast Guard station, and looking back at the north end as well. It was more significant than I ever thought it would be. This community, this association especially, fought very hard to keep that public viewing area, and yet it has never been open. And it needs to be open along with the museum, and it needs to be promoted as well. And the Harbor Walk needs to be maintained at all times so that public access is not encumbered along there. Thanks.
Any other comments from the members?
I guess I would have one kind of follow-up on David's comment about public access. I don't get over there that often, so maybe I'll be naive with the question, but are there bathrooms associated with
there
that
are
are
great
public?
restrooms, and they're, as far as I know, the last time I checked, they're open at reasonable hours of the day, every day. They're within the they're well-maintained.
Great.
They're in the museum, aren't they? Or next to it.
They're just right outside.
So, anyone else have anything final to say before we go to a vote? Any closing comments you guys want to make?
Chris, you're new here, you want to say something?
No, we would just very much appreciate your support, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Okay, so I think it's time for us to take a vote. We have our voting packet that's been distributed. We're using the pink number 1. Please circle support if you wish to approve the license and the license, what was proposed. The vote is in support 23, opposed 3. So we will write a letter in support for the battery work.